Good morning, and a great morning it is. This is Humble Road MIDI-Me number 2. This is Nadine's MIDI-Me. It is a passenger version. It's the short wheelbase passenger version. A bit difficult to build on because it was a passenger version. All kinds of airbags and air curtains and ventilation ducts in the headliner, along the side, interior body panels. It was a bit of a challenge. The challenge being that I needed to allow access. I had to maintain access to all of those Mercedes components when they go bad. A Mercedes mechanic, if he isn't a prima donna, will take out the drawers, the drawer boxes, and he'll have full, complete access. We even designed this countertop and sink in such a way that it can be completely removed if we wanted full access to everything in there. So I'm not cutting anybody off in the future. I'm very sensitive in all our builds to maintain access to the components. Mr. and Mrs. Sprinter's van came back. I don't think it was winterized effectively, and the water heater froze and cracked and burst. And when he turned it on in the spring, the water went shooting everywhere. She brought it back to us. We actually took the water heater out, and we also removed the water tank, the freshwater tank, because we figured with all that water back there, we've got to get it dried out before it gets to mold. And honestly, to get that water heater out and get that fresh tank out, it might have been an hour. So that's a testament to the way we build, the design. It's the first thing we think about when we start a build, is we plan the positioning of all the components so we can get at them. Okay, Metris, very comfortable. I'm sitting in the swivel. We've got a beautiful twin bed here and a long galley. The Metris is different from the Mini-Me in the sense that it's wider, longer, and taller. So in every respect, you've got more room in the Mercedes Metris than you do in the Ram ProMaster City. They both fit in the garage, unless you put an air conditioner on top. You can see in the frame there, we have a 1,000 watt pneumatic cooling air conditioner on the roof of this van. It's a DC air conditioner. I've got dual 320 amp lithium batteries from Lithionics. So we've got a parallel connection of 640 amp hours, which totals out to almost 9,000 watt hours. So it has no problem running that air conditioner. It's pulling about 27 amps from each battery. So theoretically, you could get a little over 11 hours on a full charge. Of course, you'd be depleting the batteries the next day. You would have to start driving somewhere. When you're driving, you'll have 30 amps of DC charging coming off the alternator up front, 30 amps on the Victron Orion. And we've got 300 watts of solar up on the roof of this little girl. This is the short Metris. It's the little one. One of the advantages is all this glass. During the day, it's absolutely beautiful. You know, you sit here on your iPad, you're having your coffee, and you've got 360-degree views from where I'm sitting. It's quite nice. As you can see, I'm sitting up front with my feet up on the cooler. This is a cooler. It could be either fridge or a freezer, not both, fridge or freezer. And it generally sits behind the passenger seat here. When you come in to sit and relax, you can just move it over here. You can also slide it down the aisle. Okay, we made sure that our aisle is big enough to slide the cooler down, so you've got lots of options, lots of options. So let me show you what this galley looks like. So, we okay? Good. Nice big galley, okay? 18 inches deep. We've got our classic sink. This is the sink that we put in the Mini-Me's and the Metris, the MIDI-Me. And we also have our filtrated water, UV and filtered water by Acuva. We've got a little drain board down in the bottom of the nice big deep sink, bamboo cutting board. Very deep drawers, very big deep drawers in the Metris. You can fit pots and pans in here. You can load it up with clothing. Although we do have our baskets underneath the bed. You bring these in the house, you fill them with your clothes, you bring them out, you slide them under the bed, you're good to go. Another deep drawer down here, very deep drawer, and this one has the sliding utensil tray. Now, this is one of the examples of access. This center panel, there's two little finger gateways. Look at how easy that was. To pop that panel, you can put eyes on your gray water tank. You can put eyes on your connections. You can very easily change your filtration. About once a year, you want to swap out this cartridge for the Acuva water system. This is magneted in place with a spline on the bottom. So we set that right inside our 80/20 channel. Okay. And on the sides here, like I said, we've got a little 4 fingers go in the slots on each side and you can pop it open. Now this is how we would get quick access. We remove that drawer and we can check inside the fresh tank to make sure that's clean. We have full access to change fuses, to isolate our zones. That all happens just by pulling out the one drawer, right? And then this is a hand access to pop out this panel, black panel. It's magneted in. Same thing down this end. We've got a drawer box that's got one big drawer. We have access to the top of our water heater. We have access to the water heater plug. And then we got a nice cubby down here. We didn't waste 1 inch. You've got nice big counter surfaces here, and you've got our coffee shelf. We put this coffee shelf in all the vans, in all the minivans now, the 3 Series. Generally in a Mini-Me, it's up here. We couldn't do that because of all these body panels and such and the lower ceiling. So we put it right back here along the glass. Very easy to get to, very nice. And we put a light under it, which I love. Let me see which one that is. Yeah, look how nice that is. I just love the lighting we do in these vans now. We've got a night light under the bed. We've got 1 string of lights over the bed. We've got another string of pucks over the galley. Here's our vanity mirror. It's lighted and rechargeable. It's got different color settings. Oof. Back here in the rear of the van, we are now intentionally leaving this area wide open. We want to let the clients live with the vans for a while, 6 months or a year. And then they can come back and tell us what they may like to add back here, or maybe not. Maybe it's just fine for them to put baskets or whatever they want to store. They may want to put some L-track on the wall so they can lash camping chairs and awnings and such. We're happy to do that, but I think it's best to have each individual client live in their van and get acclimated. Then they can come back and tell us exactly what they want. So a little bit of a chat about the pneumatic cooling air conditioners. These are DC air conditioners. This one is one of their first iterations. It's a 1,000 watt air conditioner coming straight off the batteries, not through the inverter. And it was a beast to get it mounted on a Metris, and that's no fault of pneumatic cooling. The problem is the Mercedes Metris roof struts are not strong enough. And where we needed to position this air conditioner, it was in the middle of roof struts that were the farthest apart from one another. So if we just set that air conditioner on the roof of this van, it would have been bouncing and eventually it would have dented and probably collapsed the sheet metal. So we had to build an 80-20 superstructure up on the roof in this van to support that air conditioner, which isn't that heavy out of the gate. You know, your normal 120 volt AC air conditioners are about 90, 95 pounds. This 1,000 watt unit is, I think, 50 pounds, 65 pounds at best. So we had to construct and engineer an 80-20 system up there that the air conditioner is actually sitting on the 80-20 system up there. And then we added in a plenum, a flexible plenum, to connect the air conditioner back down into the 14 by 14 opening. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the internal panel that comes with the pneumatic cooling, the mounting screws were just outside of that 14 by 14 hole. We didn't like that. So Ron got that CNC fired up, took some measurements, and we made our own internal panel for the pneumatic cooling. Yes, we popped off their adjustable heat vents here, cooling vents, and we took their little digital screen here and popped it in our new ABS panel. One thing I do like about this pneumatic cooling unit is how flush it is. You know, even our usual 120 volts, the Coleman, for instance, or a Houghton, that internal control panel is about 2.5, 3 inches down from the ceiling. In many cases, that makes a big difference. It's a deal breaker, not a game breaker, it's a deal breaker. This one is quite nice because it's so flush. So I give the pneumatic cooling some props. I was not happy with the mounting system. They welded some nuts up there. They give you like a 6 foot-pounds of torque to tighten it down. But then in the newer iterations, they've made some improvements to the mounting system. But when you fire this thing up, it's quiet. It's very quiet and it blows very cold air. So I'm happy with that. We're going to see how this performs long term. The few times I've called in or emailed pneumatic cooling, I've gotten my responses. So their customer service seems to be commendable. We'll see how it goes. I'm putting the 3000s in my bigger builds. I've got 3 of these 1000s, and I've got 3 of the 3000s, which I think are called 3X or X3. They don't make the 1000 anymore because it's just not enough power to cool full-size vans. But for what I'm doing here with the MIDI-Me or a Mini-Me, it's ideal. Oh, I do not recommend putting this air conditioner in a Mini-Me. What happens there is you've got to add that second battery in order to run this thing practically. There's not a lot of room in the Mini-Me. There's room here. You can see that we had to give up this much space to that battery. And what we would have done is we would have added to the underbed storage. But this is where that second battery lives, right here. We never touched the 25-inch parcel over here. This is a physical plant. Added that battery, had a little room in front, so we added a little cubby. You really got to make sure that an air conditioner is essential because it's quite costly. This is 2 to 3 times the cost of a regular 120 volt unit. And then you got to add a second battery. So there's a real cost to adding an air conditioner in these little guys. Boy, that sun is bright. Up front here, I call this Command Central. This is virtually the same on all of our Minis and Midis, just a little bit different configuration or composition, as it were. Switch panel with all your switches that are in a protected carcass, so you can't inadvertently turn one on or off as you're passing through this area. This is a AC, 120 volt AC switch. You all know about this. I've got it labeled. Everything is temporarily labeled until the owner gets used to where things are. When this switch is in the down position, that means the outlets are live, the receptacles. They are GFCI protected. When it's in the up position, we have activated the Bosch water heater, 120 volt water heater, and you're making hot water. You cannot run anything on the outlets in addition to the water heater. You'll go beyond the 3,000 watts the inverter will provide. You've got to just do the math. If you've got an induction cooker going, that could be anywhere from 750 watts up to 1,800 watts. Okay, that's plugged in. You turn on that Bosch water heater, you're calling for another 1,500 watts. You've exceeded the 3,000 watts that the inverter can put out. It's going to protect itself and shut down and create an alarm and a blinking red light. And then you're going to call me. Is there something wrong? So you can't use both. It's either or. That's the reason for the switch. Down for receptacles, up for hot water. Never both. Have I made my point? USB plug. This is the freshwater gauge to see how much water is inside. This is your lithionics gauge. This gives you all the information on the lithionics. And this is the Xantrex inverter remote panel. Now, both of these panels are kind of redundant sitting here because you've got an excellent set of apps on your phone for the lithionics, for the Xantrex, and also Victron. I've got a Victron solar controller. I've got a Victron Orion DC to DC charger. All those apps on your phone can give you a complete picture of your power system. Under the bed, as always, a nice big deep drawer. These are your 2 battery shutoffs. Here's another USB. They're everywhere. And this is your AC control panel. This is your main 30 amp breaker. And then we only have one 20 amp breaker that goes to the galley. And this breaks the receptacles or the Bosch heater. And I've also got another breaker for the shore power, 30 amps of shore power coming in. That comes right in through the side of the van through a smart plug. And then we have a 30 amp breaker right there. And then it comes through the inverter to this breaker and that breaker. The sun is very contrasty over here. Anyway, this is our freshwater fill. This is called a deck hatch. It's from the boating world. This would go into the flush deck, and you would fill up your water that way, and it's meant to be walked on. And then they have this little key that you would keep on your key ring. Because we're not on a deck and we don't need this to be flush because you're not walking on it, we epoxied the key right onto the deck hatch, the deck lid. It's nice. This is a stainless steel, really durable. This is your vent, nice stainless steel vent for the fresh water tank. By no means should you fill that water tank, that water's coming out your vent, okay? This is your water gauge right here. So you can very easily keep an eye on this gauge and don't overfill. Never leave this with the hose going. Never. If you're filling your freshwater tank, you stay here. You have the patience and the fortitude to stay until it's filled where you want it. You could put that hose in, you could turn it on and walk away. Forget you're filling the van. Before you know it, you got an indoor jacuzzi over here. But the water pump is right back here, okay? Right behind this panel. This is white oak, by the way. How beautiful is this? This panel, as you can see by the screws and the finish washers, this panel can come right off. We have this set into T-nuts and they're machine screws. This panel can come right off to service that water pump. However, if there is such a time that you have a failure on that water pump and it springs a leak, obviously you're going to shut the pump off right away, but that initial surge, that initial leak is going to land here on this step and run right out of the van. Catastrophe averted. Power doors on this passenger van. And it woke up the cockpit. Anyway, futon mattress. Futon shop in San Francisco. I don't get any kickbacks from them. The reason I mention it every time is because I think it's a very, very high quality product. For mini-me's and midi-me's, I don't think you can do a better job of putting in a high quality mattress than this. They're fully custom. I call them in any size I want, any thickness I want, and I can build up the interior layers. There's memory foam, there's wool padding, and within a 4-inch height, you get a lot of comfort. You really do. This is not that shitty futon that you used to use in college. Bed reclines up and down. You can watch a movie on your iPad. You can go up a little further and read your Kindle and then bring it back down for sleep. If I take these clickers off and move this all the way up, then I have access to all the physical plant underneath. The batteries, the inverter, the bus bars, the fuses, the breakers, etc. Like all the rest. This one, as I said, has 2 batteries, 2 320 amp hour batteries, so that we can run that pneumatic cooling air conditioner. This is a snazzy little van, I have to say. It came in black. This van was purchased, I think, down in South Carolina. It's going to be living in the Pacific Northwest, I think in the Seattle area. Anyway, very snazzy. We had to do that 80-20 roof rack up here for the solar panels, 300 watts of solar, and the air conditioner. So then what we decided to do is we came along here with some starboard, and we fabricated our own surround. We've got a wind deflector up front here, and then we have these side panels, and it really makes the van look very stealthy. I think it is a very snazzy van, as they say. We've got a pair of D-rings here. Here's one D-ring. Here's another D-ring. And those are for your moonshade. 9-foot moonshade, 9 foot across by, I think, 7 foot out. Really nice. So you just click those in, and it's party time.